to our service here at Hope United.
We'd love for you to join us at one of our services, either Motherwell at 11 a.m. or Dundee at 5 p.m.
For more resources, you can visit our website or check out Pastor Mark's Thinking Church series on YouTube.
Thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the service.
Different journey back to Sola Scriptura, and that's been a journey. It's been an amazing journey. We're almost 2 years, not quite, nearly 2 years into that journey, and I'm going to be meeting with the team and just be reflecting on what's happened and what we still need to change and where we need to. Because we've had to be very organic about this, because it's unusual for a church. It's not unusual for a church to be more reformed and then go to contemporary. And as they start to edge the other way, it's much more unusual for a church to be more contemporary and more pragmatic and then start to go the other way. We're passing people going the other way. No, as we're passing, they're on the way into worldliness, and we're going back into the Word of God, having the sole authority, and we've had to navigate that, and we've had to take people on that journey, and some people have struggled with that. Some people have not been able to embrace that journey, and I think the church has been purified through the Word, which is great, and so it's been a journey over that last period, and it's been amazing. But we've been in the Gospel of John now since October. We've been in chapter 7 and 8, I think, for about 3 months, it feels like, you know, and we're not in any hurry, but we've been in it for a while, and we'll finish chapter 8 this morning. Just to give a bit of heads up, we're in the last 6 months of Jesus' journey, and in the Gospel of John, different from other Gospels, there is no parables in the Gospel of John. It's very different from the other Gospels and the account that John gives of Jesus. He's given a heavenly perspective of Jesus, that Jesus is the Son of God. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory as the only begotten Son of God, full of truth and grace. And this is John's writing of what it was like to walk with God in the flesh. It's not what it was like to walk with Jesus the man, so he's always given a heavenly perspective, and different from the other Gospels. There is some similarities, but it's predominantly very different from the other Gospels. And here we are now in chapter 8, the last month of Jesus' life. The Feast of the Tabernacles is finished. He was there. He was debating with the Jews who are just desperate to kill him, and they're getting madder by the minute. And they're getting more desperate by the minute to kill Jesus. And he's been in this debate, which seems for a length of time, with the Jews. And he just finished talking to the Jews, and it says that some believed, and then Jesus says, if you remain in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And he was really addressing the people who say they believe, but they only believe it by lip service, not really by action or anything. And he's still in this debate, and then he ends up saying, as we spoke about last week, he ends up saying that, he says, there's two fathers. There's either God or there's the devil. That's it. There's only two. There's either God, there's no 1,000,001 different kinds. We spoke about a few weeks ago about postmodernism, and in postmodernism society, the days that we're living in, everything and anything's God. It's the God of your own interpretation, God of your own idea, it's God of your own angle, God, whatever, how you see it. And not only that, that's understandable. That's understandable if that's the world's view. That the world has get their own idea and the God of their own understanding and the God of their own perception. That's understandable that the world would think that. That's not the danger. The danger is when the church starts teaching that and actually preaching, and the church starts teaching the God of your own interpretation and the God of your own angle and the God that however you see him is okay in the world. No, it's understandable in the church, but in the world. But when the church is starting to preach that no, God can be anything another. No, you hear modern day preachers today saying, "Do you believe Jesus is the only way to heaven?" And you'll see some of these modern, super the mega church leaders, and it's not necessarily about size. And no, I heard one saying, a while ago. He says, "No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I believe there's many ways." And the sad thing is that the scary thing is not that they think it. The scary thing is that they share it for the platform. That God could come in any way, and it's just to embrace people because people think differently today, and people want that today, and so you don't want to be too hard or too harsh. And what we're going to hear here is, for me, is a total masterclass in non-compromising. It's a total. I just heard the tail end of what Callum was saying, and this is a masterclass in Jesus, no compromising in order to adapt to suit whatever's going on in people's lives. And he does it brilliantly. He does it as he would. He's Christ. He does it brilliantly. So the subheading for this morning is bring the word to our world. And he finished in verse 47 by saying, "You follow the Father. You follow your father, the devil, Satan." This is what he's saying in verse 47. And this just incites even deeper intensity in the Jews at this point, and particularly the Pharisees. So in this crowd that Jesus is debating and arguing, if you like, with the Jews, there are almost two types of people in the crowd. There'll always be that, usually, if there are a crowd of people. There'll be them who are coming against you, and there'll be them who's just listening from afar. And Jesus knows that he's talking to different types of people. He knows when he's addressing a crowd, that he's addressing a crowd who are not interested whatsoever and just there to argue for argue's sake. But he's also, in amongst that, there'll be people who are peer pressure. There'll be very much peer pressure. You know, I used to speak in young offenders' prisons quite a lot years ago, and it was common that after you spoke in the prison, all the bravado would be there when you were speaking. And as you would go to get a cup of tea, there would always be at least a couple of people coming up to you and going, "And can I have a wee private word with you?" They never wanted to say anything in front of the crowd because it wasn't cool to say that you were considering Christ, or you had a desire, or you were seeking God in any way in case you get battered. But they would just come up and get a cup of tea and have a wee chat with me. And all this would have been going on about Jesus. So this takes us to verse 48, and we'll just go through line upon line as we always do. "Then the Jews answered and said to him, 'Do we not say rightly that you are a Samaritan and have a demon?'" And this always happens, you know, it's like the arguments went to another level. And when arguments go to another level, you end up getting personal. It's now getting emotional. And the argument was, they were debating doctrine and they were debating theology before that. But they've went beyond this because Jesus had said something, and he's just incited even more anger and rage into them by what he said. And they've said the worst thing they can possibly say, "You're a demon and a Samaritan." And when they could not make any further progress or put a dent in Jesus' theology or way, they done what most people do. They go personal. They go personal. You ever been in the arguments? I've done it. I hate that I've done it, but I've done it. You know, you're in an argument. I hope it's happening less now in my life, but you're in an argument and the emotion starts getting up, and before you know it, you go personal. You're no longer in theology. You're no longer debating. You're trying to. Have you ever been in an argument? And I'm sure no use. I'm just helping you, telling you how flawed I am. No, and you're talking, and you're just looking for someone to be hurtful. You know, you're in that argument, you're going, you're just looking for someone to be just that wee bit more hurtful, that wee bit more damaging. You know, you've stepped away, as we've been talking about in John 8. We've stepped away from the word. We've stepped, and all of a sudden, all this emotion, and this is where the Jews are at. All this emotion's flaring up, and they're not in this theological battle. They now go personal. They tell him he is off his head. Oh, I'm sure maybe somebody have told you that if you've maybe been trying to preach the gospel to them. You have lost the plot. You are off your head. And it's important to note that they wanted everyone to think that. And this is the sickness, false religion. that they're no happy that they think it. They want to influence every single person round about them. And these Pharisees that are arguing with Jesus they've got other things in mind. They want to take Jesus down, but they want to let everybody else know who is maybe the jury's out. Maybe their ears are up. Maybe they're thinking, you know what, I wonder if this Jesus is... No, he says a lot of good stuff here. And they've got two things in mind. They're trying to diss Jesus, but they're trying to make sure that everybody else round about them won't like Jesus either. You know, I'm sure you can relate that to different environments in your life, that the person's not just happy that they don't like it. They want to influence everybody not to like it. You know, I don't know if you ever done this, that when you were younger, or maybe no so younger, that you would fall out with somebody, you'd fall out with your pal, and you'd want every other pal not to like that pal that you didn't like anymore as well. You weren't happy that you didn't like that pal. You want everybody not to like that pal. You know, but you can date now. The older you get, see when you see it with young people, they just show a toy. See when you get older, you're much cleverer than that. No, a young person to steal a friend will just show a fancy toy. You know, I used to be into Action Man when I was a wee boy. Know the kid on plastic hair, the real guy. No, the one with the real hair. I loved him. My brother called them dolls, and I hated them for it. And I used to play with Action Men, and any time I fell out with my pals, or we would fall out, the Action Men would be out, just trying to steal a pal. No, and honestly, highest bidder, it didn't matter. You know, and that's how you would manipulate. That's how I manipulated. You know what I mean? I'll just get my Action Man Jeep and tank and play in it, and I know you'll leave them. I know you'll prefer me. And sure enough, they usually did. You know, that's how loyal you are when you're young. You know what I mean? You don't give a rip. You know, you're loyal to the best doll. You know, so here this is what they're doing, but it's much more intelligent, and it's much more subtle how they're trying to steal the people's hearts and stop them attaching themselves. Because Jesus is a huge threat, and especially if you're on a journey and all their life is wrapped in this false religion, this Jewish false religion. So when they say he's a Samaritan, as I study this, I'm not sure that they even believed he was a Samaritan. They just know that would be enough to shock folk into no wanting to follow him. So, and that's why they say it. So it's important to know they wanted everyone to think that. So this statement was not just "you're crazy." It's we want to stop any inkling of persuasion Jesus had. They wanted everyone to shut him out. Listen, see if you're preaching the gospel. We need to have thick skin, because it's guaranteed that somebody is going to use you and find stuff and dig stuff up and find whatever they can to prove that person shouldn't be listening to you or ever listening to you. Another way of doing this was to say he was a Samaritan. Them knowing that all Jews hated Samaritans. In fact, Jews hated Samaritans that much that many of them wouldn't even get through that town. They would bypass Samaria. Jesus in his ministry was the opposite. He goes right into Samaria and reaches the woman at the well. So this is a ploy to keep people away from ever hearing the truth. It's a statement that would end anyone considering following Jesus. You think, oh no, there's no way. There's no way. And they're no longer speaking or debating on spiritual level anymore. They have now gone all emotional and angry and personal and abuses where they're at. And this is where people go, but it's never where we should go in a debate or an argument. It should never be where we should go. Jesus is just about to answer, and what you're going to hear is Jesus never retaliates. And sometimes you get in these debates with people, and I think the longer you walk with God, and depends on what you're doing. I was speaking to people this week, and it's not just enough to just go, you know what, you don't know what you're talking about, you're talking rubbish. Or not having a good apologetics, not having a good debate. You have to learn to learn how to have a debate with people and not be offended with people's opinions and what people say, and having feedback. It's okay to have feedback. I remember talking to a pastor a while ago. He says, I never like feedback. He says, how? He says, oh no. He says, my heart couldn't cope with it if they didn't like it. I says, but it's good to get... Now, that doesn't mean to say that you're approaching every Tom, Dick and Harry and saying, what do you think? So he simply continues to share the truth because that's the most loving thing to do. He doesn't want to back down, but he doesn't want to backbite. Verse 49 and 50, Jesus answered, I do not have a demon, but I honour my Father, and you dishonour me. I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks and judges, and Jesus came to give God glory. If it was glory he wanted, he would have stayed in heaven. And Jesus came to seek and save them who were lost. This is still his motive. Regardless of the persecution, regardless of the argument, regardless of how personal people are gone. You know, when people tend to go personal with us, we go personal with them. And then we forget about what we're here to do, which is to bring the gospel. You know, regardless, single-mindedness of bringing the gospel to people's life, regardless of what they're hitting us with or what they're not hitting us with. And you've almost got to manage sometimes what's going on in you when people are saying stuff to you. You know, you've almost got to have this other thing going on when people are speaking to you going, I don't know if you ever have this, that I think the longer you're on the journey, you start to capture this, and you know that there's stuff flaring up internally. You know, but you have to learn to try and capture that. You know, when you start to feel offended or you feel swayed, and you go, I could answer that back. Before you know it, you're in an argument, which is no helpful to MD. And Jesus came to seek them who were lost. Jesus didn't come to get glory. And the Jews were all about glory. And when we need glory, and this is really what I believe part of the scripture is saying, when we need glory, when we need praise, then we need worship. And someone threatens us or becomes an obstacle or starts to challenge us, people will go after them who are a threat. And Jesus is a threat to them getting glory and worship. And I done a thing a while ago called the badge holder. It was years ago I done it. And often what we do is what was happening here is that they're trying to make sure that Jesus he's invalid. No, he's invalid. And often here in the Pharisees, they want to be the badge. They want to hold all the cards. They want to hold all the power. And the only way to get that power away from Jesus is to prove that he's not worthy of having it. You know, just what I said earlier there in the last verse. And it's like somebody's got this badge holder and you can try and... When I was a young boy, I learned quickly that the only way you could get praise is either do something brilliant or prove somebody's rubbish. Yeah. And if I couldn't do something brilliant, I would need to prove that somebody was terrible because I needed to get the praise. And the more we need the praise of people, the more personal we become and the more fleshy we become. He goes on and says in verse 51, most assuredly I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death. Jesus again, just staying true, as he says, Jesus is the whole crowd in mind here. This is what you need to remember. Jesus is the whole crowd in mind. He has everyone, Jew in mind, not just them who are attacking him. You know, and often what happens is in conversations is that we end up getting caught up in the person who's debating with us and we're in a crowd. Almost guaranteed when you're preaching the gospel, when it's not to one person or you're sharing the gospel to a crowd, they're guaranteed there'll be different people at different levels in that crowd. There'll be people who are probably more prone or more interested in Christ than others. The problem is when you step off, I always share the illustration of Apostle Paul when he was up in court in front of Festus and King Agrippa. Festus was a guy that he lived with, he was in the Sanhedrin with, and Festus is the accuser. And what happens is Festus, as Apostle Paul gets to the courtroom or gets to the dock to share his testimony, because he testified to know nothing except Christ and him crucified. That was his goal. No trying to debate what was right and wrong and getting caught up with somebody else's agenda. And when Paul gets to the dock, he starts to speak, and Festus starts to speak. And the word Festus in Hebrew means controller of the soul. It means someone who's trying to control your thinking. And Festus kept on digging up the past and telling them he was off his head. A bit like here, kept on telling them that, no, you're off your head. You've lost your mind, Paul. You've lost your mind. And what Paul never does is he never gets caught up in a debate with Festus, which often you can get drawn into. He never gets caught up with the debate with Festus because he's got one thing in mind as King Agrippa. And King Agrippa means wild horse in Hebrew. No, and he's trying to tame this wild horse and manage, get into this other man's psyche, if you like, and into his belief systems. And actually, to the point of view that King Agrippa says at the end, if you don't stop talking, Paul, I'm going to end up believing. And he says this, not only you, but all who hear you. And the reason he was able to do that is because he didn't get caught up in the argument with other people. And how many times have we been in the gospel or been trying to preach or talk to people about the gospel, but we end up in an argument because somebody goes personal ways and it starts to affect us, or it starts to jar us, or it affects our flesh, and before you know it, we're defending our offence. So he's still keeping the gospel message of grace open. John MacArthur says this, the gospel message is not about purpose in life as much as escaping death and hell. Isn't that interesting? No. How much of the gospel message is the day that people come through the doors of church and all we want to talk about is what's your dream? Yeah. What's your dream? Let it help you find. Never mind whether you know Christ or you need to repent or you need saved. It's all about what's your dream, because that appeals to people. Yeah. And this is the promise of those who receive Christ, that in these debates it's no time to argue, but more to continue to plead and proclaim the message and the purpose that they need. So we have to be disciplined when we're speaking to people so that we don't veer off. And here's a great lesson, I think. When we get kickback or people debate with us or challenge us or reject the gospel, we can tend to just shut down the message and the truth. Yeah. We just tend to kind of shut down. And John is explaining here that Jesus never allowed it to shape the truth or change the promise. He simply just kept saying, all that aside. No, that's fair and well. You're a nutter, all right, okay. You're crazy, all right. You're a Samaritan, whatever. All that aside, if you remain in the Word, I mean, how loving is that? All that aside, if you remain in the Word, you'll see eternal life. He's no change in his approach, and this is key here, I think. And as I was reading this and studying this and looking at my own life, it's how many times I can change my approach or change what I start speaking to people about because of what I'm getting flung at me. And you start changing how you speak to people, and you all of a sudden now you just come out the Word. You just step away from the Word, and before you know it, you're bringing comfort to them, or you're arguing with them in a different case. He isn't adding an event. He isn't adding a healing, a story. Sometimes that happens, when people start, well, wait till I tell you this. And you're going to have to send you the gospel. I'm not saying that we've not to find wisdom in how to speak to people's lives, but if I relate this to my life, I think that the amount of times that I end up in a conversation with people, and then even their facial reactions, they can just, they don't even need to say anything. They can almost pull a face. Just pulling a face can make me just, I better not say this next thing here. Well, and you're always preempting what they're thinking and going, and before you know it, this is stuff that I say. I'm not saying you do. I go, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not agreeing with everything the Word says. I'm not agreeing with everything in the church. I'm defending I'm defending what they're against. Because I'm now being consumed with what's coming at me rather than what I'm supposed to be presenting. He isn't adding an event or a healing. This is what happens in church. No, we're adding an event, or we're adding, let's have another event. It depends on what the event is, I suppose. We're adding a healing. We're adding some sort of performance. What about a big opener? That nearly got me saved. I mean, really? All that time spent in a big, massive opener. And check the opener. Dum, 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 dum. Because that'll make people feel better about, listen, this gospel's all right. There's an opener here. These people are all right. These people must be all right. They're a big opener here. We've got 2 ballet dancers and an operatic singer. I mean, this opener must be beneficial. This is making me feel all right. Spending thousands of pounds. 4-quartet, harpsichord, band. I've seen it all. No, prophetic dancing. Some sort of stuff that it's just to bring all this. It's to make the gospel feel less harsh. So make you feel a wee bit better. No adding an event. Jesus isn't adding anything here. You know, he's almost like a bit single-minded here, Jesus. Yeah. No, and they're calling him a demon. They're saying he's a Samaritan. He's saying, you remain in my word. You're thinking, come on, Jesus, give some angles. Oh, why are you not giving us some angles? And he's just staying, it's just almost like, he's just staying through. And one thing the church has become so immersed in is adding stuff in an attempt to win people. It keeps on adding things in an attempt to win people. This is what it does. If we add this, it'll win people. It's this postmodernism. Let's add stuff that's got more chance of winning people. And slowly but surely, we have to ask ourselves why we're doing that sometimes. And if I'm in conversations with people and people are starting to be offended or they're not agreeing and they're starting to get a bit personal or they're pulling faces and all that stuff, it's almost like I have to manage what's going on inside me that's making me want to just step away for the truth. Maybe because I want accepted or approval for people. When I was studying, I was thinking about the times and conversations. Maybe think about this as we're God's word's been opened here, thinking about the times and conversations when I've allowed others to take me off track. And I've started to accommodate their awkwardness. No, there's a difference between understanding somebody's awkwardness, they're feeling a bit awkward, but when you start to accommodate their awkwardness, when in truth it's my own lack of conviction. It's nothing to do with anything other than my lack of freedom. Because Christianity, you know, we've made it so civilised. Christianity is so, let's make it civilised, you know, we're living in different times a day. It's us that become that way because the word isn't abiding in us. And that's what I found. I wrote a post yesterday and I was talking about the people of the way. I was talking about the people of the way. No, I mentioned last week in church that there was, I heard Al Muller saying that God's no longer found but made. Yeah. We're living in times where God's no longer found, he's made. Yeah. And I was writing a post on that kind of stuff yesterday, and I ended up talking about the people of the way. In the book of Acts, all the disciples, the apostles, the followers of Christ were simply identified as the people of the way. No, they were never identified as the people that just so get me. You know that? No, by the way, they just so, oh, I love that guy. He just so gets me. They were never known as the people that just so, you know that stuff, that the modern church, that's just what it is today, you know. You know what, I see him, he just, oh, I love his preaching. He just so gets where I'm at. You know, they were never identified as that ever. They were just identified as people of the way. No, they were the people who followed Christ's teachings and the way of Christ. And the reason they knew that belonging, they knew that as soon as they met them, because they never preached anything else. They never spoke about anything else. They were the people of the way. You can hear the date in 2019, and that's just so old-fashioned. And it's just so old-fashioned to be just the people of the way. You know, we're in 2019, Mark, chill out. You know, living in different times today. We can't just be people of the way. That's the way it's went, isn't it? You know, like, let's get a bit more modern in the church. I've even heard preachers saying that Apostle Paul would be irrelevant today. Irrelevant? Apostle Paul's irrelevant today. Yeah. 2/3 of the New Testament almost wrote, and he's irrelevant. People of the way and how the apostles, disciples followed were instantly recognized as the people of the way. Them that followed Christ and his teachings. Here's the thing that challenged me as I was studying this. In certain relationships that I'm in, would I be identified as a person of the way? And the truth is no. The truth is no. And how have I done that? Because I've justified that in that area of my life, I can't be a person of the way. I've justified, I'm in work. You can't be a person of the way in work. Now, that doesn't mean to say that we should, I don't know, whatever job you're in, that doesn't mean to say that every time you go to work, you have to do your job. Because that's not honourable to your boss. You have to just, I'm bringing my Bible, your boss is like, you're not doing any work, but I'm a person of the way. You know, like, no, I'm not paying you to be a person of the way. I'm paying you to get that machine on. You know, so you have to do your job, but There's areas in my life as I look at this and I'm thinking, could I honestly say that I'm a person of the way with that person? Would they know me even as a person of the way? Would they even recognise me? Are there anything in my life, in that job, in that role, in that relationship, that would identify me as a person of the way? Or am I hoping they find out through a third party? Yeah. I don't know. Or let's be really modern Christian. They'll find out because I take their wheelie bin out. You know, that's what ends up happening. Some of you are looking at the coos at the gate there. What are you on about? It's just like, I take my neighbour's wheelie bin out. They'll know I'm off the way. Do you know, that's where it ends up going. No, because that's your excuse. Yeah. No, I fed their cat when they were away on holiday. Do you know what I mean? So I must be off the way. You know. And there used to be a Christian that stayed round the corner for us, and I'll tell you, he was off the way. And every time your ball went in his garden, he put a knife through it. You ever get the neighbours? Oh, he was a nightmare. And the guy was off the way. If I had to base it on that, he was definitely not off the way. But that heathen next door at taking the wheelie bin out, they were off the way. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Aye, why did you just get the... As soon as the ball went in, you'd be like, oh, we'd have a knife. Stopped the game. Could we be recognised as that? Because we don't say enough or do enough or stand out enough to be known. Modern church today is called... We're not here to stand out, we're here to blend in. Just blend in. Blend in. How many people know you're off the way? Verse 52, then the Jews said to him, now we know that you have a demon. It's as if they've not heard a word here. Now we know that, and it's not even now we know you have a demon, it's now we know that you have a demon. Abraham is dead and the prophets are. And you say, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who is dead? And the prophets are dead. Who do you make yourself out to be? I think it says in the NIV, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to know God? Yeah. Know the conversations? You don't have the monopoly in God. Yeah. You can't tell me who God is or who God... And before you know it, you're like, oh, there's no God here. You have to be prepared for that answer. Who are you? Who do you think you are? Telling me how to live. And you're not telling them how to live, you're just sharing the gospel. Yeah. Tell me what to do. Who are you to decide what's right and what's wrong? You know, it starts there. And then if you're in an argument with somebody you know, they're guaranteed they're going to tell you something you've done. Some for the past. What about you? Guaranteed. Now here I'm not about arguing for arguing's sake or being judgmental here. Jesus says, I'm not the judge. He said that in the previous verse, so he's not on about just being the judge. He says, I'm not the judge, I'm the messenger of the judge. Yet he still never relented in speaking truth. He had confidence in his conviction. There's the question. There's the question. If we get confidence in our conviction... Isn't it amazing that our job is to preach the gospel? Everybody's job really is to preach the gospel to the lost world, to the world, and the world's the greatest obstacle. Our purpose is to preach the gospel to the world, and the world's the greatest obstacle, and this is why we need to be free for people. And only the word can set us free. We can't be bold in our Christianity and the gospel if we're not first free for the people to whom we're taking that gospel to. Yeah. I've wrote this down because as I was studying this, I done it myself. And you don't need to, but just a thought. I think it's a good thing, and this is what I've done. I've wrote down about the people in my world, everybody in my world. And they might only be in my world for a period of time, in a workplace or a certain time or for a period of time. And I've wrote down the people in my world right now. And I ask myself, how free am I for it? How free am I in that actual, just where that relationship's right at, right now, about to talk to them about the gospel? How, just that relationship right now, maybe just an acquaintance, maybe you're in a training day with somebody, maybe it's a period of time, the line of work we're in, our jobs don't last longer than 2 weeks usually. So you've got a very short window with people. And ask yourself the question is, in that short window, does anybody know whatsoever that I am of the way? Write it down and just say, you know what? And then ask yourself the next question is, the next question would be, why am I no free to talk about that to them? What's missing? What's missing that's stopping to me being somebody of the way in that conversation? And this is what, no, and it's not, it's dead easy to attach arguments to that. Well, you know what, that's not my relationship. I was listening to Jurgen Klopp speaking. I know you were at Liverpool, Anfield. You went 50 miles the other way, mate. Right? They were at Anfield. James and Donna were away with the kids, and they were at Anfield, and I sent Samuel a message saying, tell Jurgen I'm asking for him. Jurgen Klopp's the manager of Liverpool, and he professes to be a Christian. And I was listening to an interview he had with a German journalist, and I like him. I'm like him. I don't know him. He comes across as a nice guy, you know. No, I like him. No, you know people that say I don't like them. Oh, what's Harry's wife's name? Nobody likes her now, and it's all media it's making, isn't it? They're trying to make good princess, bad princess. You know, they're trying to make Kate to be a good princess and making people, I don't like that. Markle lassie, whatever her name is. I don't even know her. I remember I was going on holiday to America once, and somebody says, I don't like Americans. I says, who are you basing that on? J.R. Ewing? Who are you basing that on? One person? I don't like, you don't know Americans. I don't like it. And by the way, that tells you how old I am. It was Dallas, running about the Dallas time. Dallas was on at the time. J.R. Ewing was public enemy number one. Like, I hate Americans. Based on what? Based on J.R. Ewing? Oh, based on Trump? But I'm not going there. I'm just not going. I'm not going there. I'm not going there. You don't force me into it. So I guess a good thing, and I started writing down about the people in my world right now and how free I am to talk about the gospel. And then I've asked myself another question in the thing that I wrote down. Why not? Why not? What's going on in me with that relationship that's making me not be able to tell them of the way? There has to be some going on. And see, when the list was long. I'll not get into the list, but I'll say a couple. Financial was one of them. That was quite near the top of the list. I don't know, I'm here to do a job and get paid. I don't want to offend this guy, end up not getting paid. Money was in the mix. Yeah. No, it wasn't the only thing in the mix, but it was in the mix. But really what had happened is in these relationships where I'm too shallow with the gospel or too accommodating to their worldly view of the gospel, is that I'm not bringing the word. I'm not remaining in the word. I'm not bringing the word into my world. I'm not bringing that word into that part of my world. It's easy. I can come here and share the word. This is easy. It's easy to talk about it in the coffee shop. But bringing the word into these superficial relationships that you know that person at no given point, well, you don't know what's going on in their world. And the problem is that at the moments, I've not allowed the word to capture me in that relationship. I've kept the word out that relationship. I've not aligned who I am as a believer to that relationship. I'm almost out with being a believer in those relationships. Often because it's not what I'm doing here. Jurgen Klopp. You thought I would miss it, didn't you? Good job I wrote it down. Because I would have. This is why I need to write it. Because I'm going off, man. Because some of you are thinking there, you mentioned Jurgen Klopp and that was it. Correct. I did. I went off. I'm back. I didn't need to tell you I'd forgot Jurgen Klopp. I could have said that, but I did. This is not about Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp interview. So Jurgen Klopp's in an interview with this German journalist, and he asked him, he says, see when you go to sign a player, they were taking him through his life and his first managerial position in Germany, and then he went to Borussia Dortmund, a big club, and was really successful there, and now he's came to Liverpool and he's really successful there. Depends how you view success, I suppose. But as a football manager, he's very successful. And he's quite a charismatic character as well, which I think people warm, and he never thinks he's special. He says he's the opposite for Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho says he's the special one. And Jurgen Klopp says, I'm the normal one. I quite like that. He says it's pure luck. It's no luck. He says, it's pure luck that I'm good at what I do. He says, if I was born 500 years ago, I'd be a homeless guy. Because who needs a football manager 500 years ago? He says, if I was born 500 years ago, I'd just be a homeless guy. He says, so the only reason I'm good at what I do is because God's made me good at what I do. So at that moment, I'm like, very good, Jurgen. This is wonderful. And then he asked him, he says, how do you sign players and what do you talk about when you sign a player? Do you talk about tactics? Do you talk about how you play? He says, no, I've had conversations about life. I talk to them about life because I want to know who they are as a person. Now you hear this. Listen to me. You hear this and I'm going, this is great. This is real modern Christianity. Klopp's sorted. You know what I mean? He's not going heavy here. And then the journalist says, you're a Christian? He says, yeah. He says, I'm a Christian. And she says, do you ever talk to the players before you sign them about your faith and your Christianity? He says, I never talk to them ever about my faith and my Christianity. He says, I never think that part of my life is anything to do with that. There lies the issue. There lies the issue. Now, some of you would go like, that's terrible. That's terrible, Jurgen. Say it, Jorgie. Get the gospel out. Yet we do the very same thing in our daily walk as well. Yeah. Oh, you judge him for that, but we do the very same thing in our life. He says, that's no part of my life. That's not what I do. And I'm thinking, and I never thought any at the time because I was caught up on being smart. No, and this is how the modern church see it teaches you to baby step all your way through into people's relationships. Yeah. Forever. That's why people come to church and they can stay in church forever and never get challenged with the gospel or they get saved. Because it's a soft soap way of getting them there, you know what I mean? They can be in worship, they can be leading. Do you know what? You ever heard of a band called Gunga? Yeah. Unlucky. No, they're a band called Gunga. It's a Christian band. They sung a song called You Make Beautiful Things. You make beautiful things. It's no help, minute, no. That's the song they sung anyway. It's the only song I know. Anyway, they ended up in a big mega church, huge mega church in America. Gunga, Michael Gunga and his wife. And they were in this massive church in America. And they get propelled right through into, because they had a talent and they had a gift. So they get propelled right away, right into the forefront of leading worship. And they led worship and they ended up having songs in the charts. Seems to be the modern church thing now is get the Christian songs into the charts and make them nearly Christian. No, but not quite Christian, you know what I mean? And what happened is that Gunga's wife, Michael Gunga's wife, can't I remember her name, Mrs. Gunga, she was they were trying for a baby and she couldn't get pregnant. She was trying for a baby and she couldn't get pregnant. And because she couldn't get pregnant and they're going through that whole process and IVF treatment and everything that went with it. And you can only imagine what the difficulty of that and the pain of that and how much a struggle that must have been when they had this desire to have a family. And they says they went a walk through the park one day. They're in this mega church leading this massive church. And they were walking through the park and Michael Gunga says to his wife, he says, see all this stuff about Jesus? To be honest with you, I've never been sure about it. A mega church they're leading. And he says, I'm paraphrasing it, I've never been quite sure about it. And she says, see, to be honest with you, neither have I. Within a few months, the two of them professed to be non-believers and left the church. And then they joined Rob Bell's movement, which is, if any of you know that, Rob Bell's movement is he stepped away from the church and he says that Jesus is not the Jesus of the Scripture anymore. He's not the God of the Scripture. He's the God of how you perceive feelings and thinking, and it's your own interpretation. It's postmodernism church. The thing is that they were propelled into that life. Now, you could blame the church as well. It's a two-way thing. But it just shows you that what's getting taught that can lead people to get to that place. In Jurgen Klopp's interview, he just says, you know what, this is just my job. I don't really see my role in life as a Christian to ever talk to people about the gospel, or to talk to people about the gospel. I'm not sure he does in any other life. Okay, time's gone here. Verse 54 and 56. Jesus answered and said, if I honour myself, my honour is nothing. It is my Father who honours me, of whom you say that he is your God. Yet you have not known him, but I know him. And if I say I do not know him, I shall be a liar like you. But I do know him and keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced. You see how single-minded he is? Yeah. There's very little deviation for this conversation with Jesus. And Jesus could talk about everything. But he talks about what matters. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. And here lies one of the major issues. We want honour. Or maybe a better way is we can't handle being dishonoured. And because we can't handle the dishonour we might receive for preaching the gospel, we end up not speaking about it. Because we can't cope with being disrespected or being rejected. We can't cope with being rejected with people. And because we can't cope with being rejected with people, we either argue too aggressively or submit too passively. And we don't want to create awkward or tension, so we avoid it. And Jesus knows self-praise is no praise, only that comes from the Father is real praise. It says further on in John 12:43, when talking about the Jews, they love more the praise of men more than the praise from God. They love the praise from men more than the praise of God. What stops me preaching the gospel and getting into the relationships where people would know I'm of the way is that I'm mere subconsciously, not overtly, but subconsciously, I'm more concerned about no offending them and in turn them no offending me. I'm more concerned about the praise of men rather than I'm praising and honouring God. And he's referring to the Jews here who was obsessed with praises of the Pharisees. And this is why, and as I bring this in, this is why Jesus is speaking with us, because he knows he's in a massive crowd here. We don't know how many. Jesus was strong with people wherever he went. And he was in a crowd, and you've got these Pharisees who are hell-bent, literally hell-bent, and never understanding him. But there's another crowd here that have got so much approval going on towards the Pharisees that they would kind of love to accept it, but they can't because of the pressure. I remember years ago, I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I used to go to AA meetings, and I was in an AA meeting, and there was a guy in an AA meeting who was a minor celebrity in his own head. He was in his own head, and he called himself a name I'll not get into. Just, you only give first names in AA, you know what I mean? So, for your anonymity. So his name was Tommy. But he had a name before it, which I'm not going to tell you in case any of you know him, right? Because it would be disrespectful. But his name before it was all about him. Okay? And I remember in an AA meeting, and I was about a year sober. And Tommy, the guy, was there. And the guy was up speaking at the AA meeting. And as the guy was up speaking at the AA meeting, and there are no trained speakers in AA, so you'll get good, bad, and indifferent. You'll get good, bad, and terrible. And the guy's up speaking and he's sharing his experience and whatever he's doing. And the wee guy who's a minor celebrity, he's AA mafia. Okay? You get this in church as well. You'll know what I mean when I say it. And what he's doing is as the guy's talking, he's turning around and shaking his head at everybody. And what he's doing is he's influencing the crowd because he can't cope with he's not the centre of attention. And what he's trying to do is put people off ever listening as well. So he's turning around and he's going. And what was happening is see all the young people who didn't know any better, because he's AA mafia. Yeah. Because he's AA mafia, he's influencing all the people to not like him. And I remember going up to him at the end, and I was raging with him. I probably could have been more gracious, but I did tell him. I told him in no certain terms that he was out of order. I says, you're not the star of the show here. Yeah. And he was influencing everybody. This happens in church as well. It's not in the culture here, thank goodness, but it's in the culture of churches where you'll get people in the front row, or you'll get celebrities in church, or people who have been in church a while, and somebody will be talking, they'll be going. Or they might not even shake their head there, but they'll definitely diss the person's preaching in the coffee shop or after the service, or they'll go somewhere and they'll start to diss the person's teaching. No, they're actually Absaloms. They're Absaloms. And Absalom used to steal. Absalom's purpose in life, his father was the devil, and Absalom's purpose, who was the son of David, Absalom's purpose was to try and steal the word for David, so that he would win people's hearts by telling them what they wanted to hear. Yeah. This is what they're doing. And here, this is exactly what the Jews are doing, and Jesus is picking up on it. So he's letting the people know that they'll have a struggle and they'll have a battle, because all these Pharisees are trying to influence you away from the true word of God. This is why Jesus is dialoguing this way. I'll say this, I really need to close if you want to come up, Fraser. We never know who else is in the crowd or in that room and what's going on in them. And if you're in a crowd of people and you're talking about the gospel, it's almost guaranteed that there'll be somebody more curious than another. There'll be somebody probably a bit more open than the other. Even though there'll be mockers in the room, it's important that we don't end up focusing on the mocker, but we just stay single-minded to keep on sharing the gospel. In today's world, people will say, how do you know God any more than me? You don't know either. And this is why standing in the Word and has to be where you keep the conversation. I will close. This is my second close. I spoke to a guy just on this thing that I've been mentioning about people shallow in our world. I was speaking to a guy yesterday who we're doing some work for. And I was in his house and I was speaking to him, and it was interesting that he asked me a question. He says, so where is your church? And I was telling him, and he says, I've got a friend who goes to churches and he loves to debate and he loves to argue. This is how the conversation started. I says, that's brilliant. I says, you should send him. I love a debate. I says, send him. I says, bring him. I says, bring yourself. And as the conversation went, and this is what I was capturing, I think it was through study, and I've been able to recognise it in myself, that and this is why we have to remain in the Word. And as I'm starting to talk to the guy, he started to go off about his experiences with God and his perceptions with God. And he's starting to go, pull faces and all the stuff that was going with it. And I sensed, because I was studying myself, I think, you know what, Mark, don't go there with him. It seems to be that magnetic pull to be familiar with the person, to make the conversation more comfortable, to win a friend. We're not trying to win a friend, we're trying to win a soul. And there's a difference between, you want a friend, that means nothing. Of course you want to win a friend, but it's more importantly to win a soul. And when we're in that mindset, and I realised that as he was speaking, I could sense in myself, there's this gravitational pull here for me to go away from the Word and start to talk to him about how I identify with him. No, and actually identify with what he doesn't like about church either. No, there's nothing worse than when a non-believer is telling you about what they hate about church, and the believer's in agreement with them about what they don't like about church, thinking somehow that's going to win them to Christ. And there was this pull for me to get away, but I kept on pulling it back and saying, you know what, I need to stay in the Word here. I need to forget about trying to comfort what he doesn't like about the Word, or what he doesn't like about Jesus, or what he doesn't like about Christianity. I need to get away from trying to over-comfort him here and stay in the Word. Do you understand what I mean? It's subtle, but there's always that push away. And Jesus ends up saying, and let me just say, stay in the Word, step out of the comfort and agreeing is often the main door to start to embrace the flesh. It's the main door to start to embrace the flesh. I really need to close. Then the Jews said to him, you are not yet 50 years old. Have you seen Abraham? Jesus said, most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. And Jesus ends the conversation with a timeless revelation. Before Abraham was, I am. He doesn't say before Abraham was, I was. He could have said that. Before Abraham was, so was I was there. He could have said that. But he's saying before Abraham was, I am. I am. He's sharing his deity, his sovereignty. He's sharing who he is. He's leaving them with no option. Now, they're not going to receive it then, but this could be months later, weeks later, years later, certainly on the cross later, as they start to get revelation. No, we've got to share the truth, and we don't know where that seed will fall. It might take weeks, it might take months. And he says, before Abraham was, I am. Why was he saying that? Because the whole purpose of the Gospel of John, and the Word became flesh and we dwelt among him as the only begotten Son of God, and we beheld his glory. We got to observe him, the only begotten Son of God, full of truth and grace. And I just think as the disciples, I must think every time they must have heard Jesus saying that, I don't think they were ever known all. In that conversation, the disciples would have been watching, and then he would have said again, before Abraham was, I am. And it must have been jaw-dropping every single time. Every single time he said it, it must have been like that. There must have never been a time like, oh, there he's saying that again. I don't think he would have been like, oh, there he's at that I am again. There he's at that I am stuff again. Every time he must have said it, I bet he must have said, I am. The great I am. And staying singular and true and purposeful in the Word, and constantly bringing the Word into our world. Maybe writing that down and that wee thing down. Maybe help us stop compromising too much and stop allowing. You've got to remember, the church, the modern pragmatic church, is constantly, in the woke church that's started as well, about equality and all this stuff. It's constantly driving us. It's an attack on the message in the gospel, because it's constantly driving us away into acceptance and approval and debating, and away from the power and the boldness in preaching the gospel. Amen? Amen. Let's stand together as we close. Thank you, guys. Let's bow our heads as we pray. Lord Jesus, we thank you for your word this morning. We thank you for its clarity. We thank you that you're teaching us to be so uncompromising in a world that's turning the gospel into another gospel, turning it into a message of difference, that's turning the gospel into individuality. We would pray, God, that as we go forth in our relationships, whether they're for a day, a week, or a month, or relationships in life where we became so familiar with, that we would go back to becoming people of the way, that would be recognised as people of the way. That we wouldn't get sidetracked with people's angers and people's judgments and people's anger towards us, that we would stay true to your word, we would remain in your word, that we wouldn't deviate, we wouldn't become intimidated by the crowd or the people or the naysayers. We would know that in amongst that crowd that there would be people seeking you and desiring you. We ask as we get into our week that we would be renewed in our boldness to preach the gospel. That we wouldn't become so passive towards it, or justify us not talking about it under the guise of we're helping or we're caring. Thank you, God, that we are set apart. We are being sanctified. We are being changed. We ask that you would continue to equip us, inspire us, and use us for your purpose and your sake. Give us the wisdom to speak into people's lives. And give us the courage and boldness to never be ashamed of the gospel. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here at our service at Hope United.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or prayer requests, then please send them in to the email address at the bottom of the screen.
Take care and God bless.